Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, Neye AKANFO NANASOM Da Medinde Ojirapo Kwesi Ra Nehem Pata Akan. Akwamumain Amaruka Etivimu Ojirapo. That means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning Africans, Black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient, Authentic, Akan, Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Ojirapo Kwesi Ra Nehem Pata Akan. Ojirapo be Akwamu Nation in North America. Ojiraman move within Ojiraman, the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Yet I say we thank you for tuning in to the show once again. We are going to open up the chat room. The chat room is opened up. If you have a question or a comment through the duration of the broadcast and you're on the phone line, hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. If you have a question or a comment in the chat room, simply you must log in as a user in the chat room in order to interact in the chat room. If you do not have a username, you can create one quickly in Blog Talk. For those who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. Of course, on Joda, Monday nights, we have AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient, Authentic, Akan, Ancestral Religion, where we deal with the Akan expression of Nanasom, of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African Ancestral Religion. We deal specifically with the Akan expression on Joda on Monday nights. Number 1, because we are Akan. Number 2, because there's a great deal of misinformation being propagated in the Western Hemisphere as well as on the continent from continental Akan people who have been infected by Christianity, Islam, Judaism, white culture in general, and that infection has manifested within their presentation of the culture, which on the surface may appear to be traditional, but in reality it's an infected presentation of our culture. So we deal with purifying concepts, culture, philosophy, ritual practice, and the understanding of the nature of the Great Mother and Great Father, Nyamewa and Nyame, the Supreme Being, Nyokompon, Nyokoton, the Creator and Creatress, who are grandchildren of the Supreme Being, the nature of the Abosom, the divinities including Tridriampong and Odomankuma and Obuadie, Asasea Fua, Asasea, these various Abosom, the Nananom Nsamafo, the spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, and their relationship to us, Watia, various different aspects of creation we deal with in a purified fashion, ancient, authentic, Akan ancestral religion. On Abinada, on Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification. We deal with Nanasom ancestral religion in general, not just the Akan expression, but no matter where it manifests with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, wherever we are in the world, we deal with purifying concepts, purifying culture, purifying philosophy, purifying the understanding of our ancestral culture, ancestral religion, the ritual incorporation of divine law, and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So we go into detail of text from ancient Kemet as well as ritual practices from wherever we have migrated or were forced to migrate in the world, dealing with our ancestral religious practices when we align ourselves with the Supreme Being through the agency of the force of the nature, the Abosom and the Nananom Nsamafo, the spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. We are engaging in our ancestral religious practice. We are ritually incorporating law and ritually restoring divine balance. And it is through purification, Ojira, that we operationalize Nanasom. We operationalize our practice of a ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. So we deal with that on Abinada Tuesday nights with Ojira purification. When we talk about ancestral religion, it impacts every thought, every intention, and every action. We seek to align every thought, intention, and action with divine order. And when we make mistakes and get off track, we engage in ritual processes to restore ourselves and realign our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. So when we talk about the ritual incorporation of divine law, That means through ritual we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we restore balance to our lives by rejecting those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, to repel, to hate, to repulse, in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and thus realign ourselves with divine order. The ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion, lead to that restoration of order in every thought, in every intention, and every action, every moment of every day. So when we engage ancestral religious practice, nanasom, we're talking about how it impacts every moment of every day, every thought, intention, and action, every aspect of our lives. It's intertwined. So we get into detail about that on Benada, Abenada, Tuesday night. On Awukuda or Akwada, Wednesday nights, we have Egua, Marketplace, and what we have typically are individuals who have their own businesses, organizations, or institutions serving the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut community in a positive capacity and conveying their ancestral religious values through that process. We've had a number of individuals come onto the show and sat with us for 2 hours to talk about their journey towards becoming entrepreneurs, establishing businesses, organizations, institutions, their journey towards ancestral religious practice and culture, and how it informs their philosophy when they're serving our people. So, in the process of the Egua Marketplace show, we have published the Okom Economic Development Model. That is an economic development model rooted in our ancestral religious values. It is therefore a holistic model and approach to economic development for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people. We have published that model. We'll put the link in the chat room right now for the Okom Economic Development Model page. So you can download the model directly from our Okom page. You can also download the 4-part series that we did on Blog Talk, dissecting that model, showing how it impacts every aspect of our lives. You can also link to the various businesses, organizations, and institutions who have come onto the show and those who will come onto the show. It's an ever-growing list. So you can link to their website, but you can also link to the interviews that they did with us on the show. Part of the process of the Okom Economic Development Model is to starve the beast and feed the pride. That is the strategy that we employ. We make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have spent with the whites and their offspring, and then we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from those white businesses and direct them towards the business, organization, or institution of the week. We are targeting one business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks. We began the process in the beginning of February, so we're beyond the halfway mark. So when you look on the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions, these are those we have been supporting as a community since February. When one person starves the beast and feeds the pride, takes those funds they would have spent, the $10 they would have spent, various white businesses throughout the course of the week purchasing products like Arizona iced tea or donuts and everything else, wasting money, take that $10 you would have spent, starve the beast and feed the pride, then you, of course, support that black business of the week with a $10 infusion of capital. When 1,000 people in our community engage in the same process and focus on that business, organization, or institution of the week, then that is automatically a $10,000 infusion of capital into a black business that allows them to stay open, expand their services and their product lines to us, hire people within our community so that our people can have employment, so they can also take care of their responsibilities while at the same time serving us at a greater capacity and so forth. And we can expand. It's a win-win situation. If we do not engage that process, we leave that $10,000 in the hands of our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring, and employ their people and employ their children and service their families and allow them to have wealth and development and so forth And of course, that is financing our own oppression. We spend over $950 billion with the whites and their offspring out of the $1 trillion that we bring in over the course of a year. Only about 5% we keep in our hands, and the other 95% we simply give away foolishly to the whites and their offspring, our absolute enemies. So instead of funding them, we need to be funding ourselves. There are nearly 2 million black businesses. There are nearly 2 million black people who are unemployed according to the recent numbers. If every black business hired one person, we would solve that problem. We can do that overnight simply by starving the beast and feeding the pride. Instead of giving billions of dollars to white Asian, white European, white Hindu, white Arab, white pseudo-Native American, white Hispanic, all of these white businesses in the community, we can simply give those funds directly to the black businesses in the community, and we start off with the Black Business Organization or Institution of the Week. We target one per week for optimal capital infusion. So they receive that capital infusion, they can begin to make changes rapidly. They can begin to hire immediately. A $10,000 infusion of capital allows that black business immediately hire somebody the same day and bring them in the same day. And they're able to pay them and so forth and begin to expand their product line and their services to us. So as we move along and expand, and we can expand to more than one business per week, 2 businesses, 3, 4, 5 per week for 52 weeks and so forth. Right now we're moving at 1 per week for 52 weeks. This particular week, including last week, is a special couple of weeks because we're leading up to our Hoodoo Nation Festival. We are having a Hoodoo Nation Festival this Saturday, October 17th in Washington, D.C. It is from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's an all-day event. It's a private event open to all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, African black people. It is free and open to the community. We will have vendors all day long selling natural products, handmade products, natural soaps, shea butter, cocoa butter, herbs, natural jewelry, handcrafted jewelry, culturally specific clothing, a number of different things. Herbs, of course, natural medicine, various products. When you go to our Hoodoo Mind page on our website, you will see the flyer that you can download. We also have a Hoodoo Mind page on Facebook that you can like that page. And yeah, I say for those who have liked the page already and those who will do so very soon in the near future, you can like that page and share that page. You can share the link. You can also, to our website, you can share the link to the flyer as well. We have an event notification in Facebook so that you can also invite your friends when you link up and click on that event notification and click that you're joining. You can also invite your friends and your friends list as well. We will have presentations as well. We have placed the itinerary, so we have updated the flyer. We updated the flyer yesterday evening. So when you go to the site now, and keep checking the site because we're going to continue to add more information leading up to the Hoodoo Mind, the festival. So we updated the flyer yesterday with the itinerary, so you will see that. As a matter of fact, we just put the link in the chat room just now. And let's check out Hoodoo's show. We'll pull it up real quick just so you can see. And we added the itinerary for the program aspect of the show. So, of course, the vendors will be there all day long from 12 to 7. And people can come in and out. But then once we get to the itinerary, the program itself, in the midst of the vending and so forth, of course, we will also have a couple of live food vendors as well, natural raw live food vendors as well. So the doors open at 12 p.m. And, of course, the marketplace begins at that time. You can shop with them all day. HYEBEA libation at the Hoodoo Mind in Komure, the Ancestral Shrine, begins at 1:30. The first presentation is at 2 p.m. That presentation will be conducted by Kamal Makesi Tahuti, the author of How to Make a Negro Christian. He will present on how Christianity was forced upon Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans, black people, by white enslavers as a means of cultural enslavement. The pseudo-religion of Christianity and the Bible have nothing to do with authentic Hutu. So he shows in his publication and through his presentation how that meticulous step-by-step process the whites and their offspring implemented in the mid to late so-called 1800s, 12,800s, so-called 1800s. They saw that we were waging war against them. We began to kill the whites and their offspring, kill slave masters, kill their children, families, staff, burn down their plantations, and free our people, because they saw that spreading all over the areas where enslavement was taking place. They saw that the end of enslavement was at hand. They no longer were able to control and hold our people. We were killing them, and they sought to preserve their own lives, so they said, we're going to have to move towards abolition and emancipation. The next step that they decided to take was to enslave the minds of our people through fake religion, a fake white deity, the fictional cartoon character Jesus who never existed. There was no Jesus white, nor was there a black Jesus. There was no Yeshua Ben Pandera, Isa, and so forth. They never existed of any form or of any race whatsoever. So Kamal goes through that process of showing how the whites and their offspring meticulously established this instruction of our people into Christianity for the purposes, the express purpose of making us docile slaves mentally. So he's going to do that presentation. Of course, Kamal also has a show on Blog Talk as well on Sunday nights, Africa's Reascension. So that is at 2 o'clock. And actually, we're going to make it at 3 o'clock. Ama Asase Ajay, owner of Asase Heal, she will present on her approach to extracting healing properties from plant life and mineral life in the forming of her tinctures. Her healing method with plants, roots, mineral life, herbs, etc. is ancestrally inherited. She is the owner of Asase Heal, so when you go to her website, Asase Heal, you'll see the various products that she produces, and this is based on her ancestral inheritance. So that's going to be a great presentation as well. And then actually we're going to make it at 4 o'clock instead of 5. We will be doing a presentation on Hoodoo people, the Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, showing and proving, of course, conclusively based on our book of the same name, Hoodoo people, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut in North America, Akan, custodians of Hoodoo from ancient Hoodoo Ndunu land, Kanit, Nubia. We prove that the term Hoodoo comes from Undu, the Akan term for medicine, from roots, plants, and stalks and trees and so forth, root work, root medicine. But Undu also means to conjure a spirit. So Hoodoo meaning root work, root medicine, also conjure is an Akan term. Akan terms meaning these things. Of course, when we brought the same term into North America, Hoodoo, it means exactly the same thing, root work, root medicine, and conjure. And we also show it means the exact same thing in ancient Kanat, a title of ancient Nubia. And one of the titles of ancient Nubia is Undu, the Undu land, and the people, the Undu people. So we go into detail about that, and we talk about our cultural continuity, how we maintained our ancestral religious practice, and how the Akan tradition is the foundational ancestral religious practice that gave birth to Hoodoo in North America. It would only be later on that the term Hoodoo was used as a catch-all term for any kind of African religious practice, and then later on, after that, the whites and their offspring sought to demonize the term altogether. So we go into detail about that history, dealing with our ritual practices as they were maintained in North America. So these are the things that will be going on, including the vending going on all day. So it's a family event. You can come out and shop. You can come out and eat. You can listen to the presentation, interact with one another, and we will also have a Hoodoo Mind Nhoma journal. We will be passing out to all of those who attend the event for free. It will include information articles about Hoodoo ancestral religious practice, also the business directory with the various vendors who are at the event, as well as other individuals who have businesses, organizations, and institutions who took out ads in the journal, so you will have that free journal, that free book to take with you and share with your friends and family members and so forth. Okay. So that is the business of the week, because we have a number of vendors that we, will be incorporating in that process. So all of those businesses are the business or businesses of the week for the AKANFO Economic Development Model of the week. And of course, once again, that event is coming up this Saturday, this Minida, October 17th, and we'll continue to make those announcements throughout the show and throughout the week. You can also look on the Hoodoo Mind page and you will see the 3 broadcasts that we have done regarding the festival. We did one on Awusi Adai, which is Kwesi Adai, a sacred Sunday. It also happened to coincide as a sacred ancestral observance in our Akan culture every 42 days, every 6th Sunday or every 6th Awusi Da or Akwesi Da is an ancestral observance. On September 26th, there was an ancestral observance of Awusi Adai. We did a special broadcast. It also coincided with the red moon, so-called blood moon, and so forth. We dealt with the cosmology, dealing with that. But then we also talked about Hoodoo Mind in relation to that. We also did a broadcast on Hoodoo Mind with regard to the building of cultural institutions. And then we just recently, last week, did an additional broadcast. And when you look on the webpage, you will see that one as well. And it is called Hoodoo Economy, Socioeconomic Development through Hoodoo, and so forth. So you can download all 3 of those broadcasts on the page as well. All right. Now we want to get to our subject for tonight, HYEBEA, overcoming doubt and fear through ancestral religion. So this is part of a series. The first part of this series, dealing with overcoming specific issues, we had overcoming transcarnational suffering. And what we were talking about there is when people are suffering and finding themselves in various kinds of situations. Sometimes there are certain situations where people, of course, when we make our transition, we become at some point ancestresses and ancestors. The spirit separates from the body. If someone was in a negative state when they made their transition, they do not always make a smooth transition. When their spirit transitions into the spirit realm, they do not always make a smooth transition to take up residence with the other Nananom, Nsamafo, and Nsamafo Pa, the ancestresses and ancestors of their blood circle, take up residence in a harmonious existence in the ancestral realm. Sometimes people were going through a great deal of anxiety, sometimes criminality, sometimes depression, various other things, and they transition in that way. And they're just as depressed and anxious and upset and angry and lashing out and so forth as they were when they were here in the world. So they become earthbound. They're still hanging around the place where they died. Their spirits are hanging around the house where they died, the place where they died on the street and so forth, in the hospital, seniors' homes, or wherever, aimlessly, homelessly, hanging out and so forth, very often harassing other individuals who are still amongst the living population in the physical realm. Such individuals, when they return through Bebra, through reincarnation, and have not closed up that wound in their spirit, in their aura and so forth, they carry that kind of negative energy with them. And just like someone who's physically cut and the wound is open, if you do not disinfect the wound and protect the wound with a bandage and so forth, it can suffer from further infection and further inflammation, further bacteria entering through the womb and causing even greater problems. And when people have an open wound in their spirit because they were spiritually discordant and their spiritual immunity was compromised, then they return into the world still open, with an open spirit wound, and they draw the kind of negative bacterial, viral type of individuals towards them. And then they suffer from various kinds of quote-unquote bad luck or negative situations in life, injury and suffering and all kinds of things. There's a way to overcome transcarnational suffering. First, you must recognize its provenance, recognize its nature, recognize its properties, recognize how it came to be. And of course, all of those questions are answered in our ancestral religious practice. And then through ritual practice, purification, ojira, realigning with your own crowd, realigning with your own krawa, realigning with your soul, divine consciousness, the divinity in the head region, realigning with your own nananom samako, your spiritually cultivated ancestors and ancestors. You can deal with that, and the abosom as well. You can deal with that and overcome this transcarnational suffering. We also dealt with Jone Yao, overcoming intercarnational pain and suffering. So not something that was carried over from a previous existence, a previous incarnation, but things that have taken place right here and have their origin right here in this particular lifetime. Sometimes people will say, well, you shouldn't be experiencing any kind of pain or suffering. So we go into detail about the nature of pain, the nature of suffering, and the nature of healing and overcoming these issues. So we're going into detail about that in that particular broadcast. We also had, if we go back, and we just want to pull this information up real quick. And if you go to our, we are Ojirafo on YouTube, and you can follow us, well, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Blog Talk, on the Blog Talk page. Hit the follow button. That way, every time we send out an email, you'll automatically be updated with the information that's coming out, the new shows that are coming out, or anything that was posted and so forth, new events. And same if you subscribe to us on YouTube. Anytime we post a new video or send out a message and so forth, you'll automatically be updated with that. Okay, so, and you'll see on the YouTube page as well, we recently posted just a few days ago from the broadcast last week, Oshe, overcoming adversity via ritual invocation. So sometimes people will say that you shouldn't be going through, have any challenges. If you're practicing ancestral religion, you shouldn't be having any challenges. If you have any challenges, then that must mean that the ancestral religion is not working for you. And of course, that is nonsensical. That's like saying the sun, the moon, the earth, the mother, the oceans, the atmosphere is not working for you. That's insanity. So we talk about the nature of adversity and overcoming adversity through our ritual practice, restoring balance, incorporating law ritually and restoring balance ritually. That is what ancestral religion is about, the ritual incorporation of law so you can learn what you need to align with, and the ritual restoration of divine balance. You learn what you need to reject. It's no different than attuning to your circulatory system and immune system. The circulatory system takes in the blood and the nutrients and shares them with all the cells in the body. But then when toxins are incorporated as well, the immune system comes along and destroys those toxic cells, cancer cells, viral agents, and so forth, so that the body's immunity is maintained, so its strength is sustained, and it can move forward in a harmonious fashion. So we dealt with overcoming adversity via ritual. So overcoming transcarnational suffering from one life to the other, overcoming intercarnational pain and suffering, things that have taken place right here, and how do we address pain, overcome pain, heal ourselves, and then prevent that manifesting once again in the future. Then overcoming adversity via ritual invocation. And then tonight, we're talking about HYEBEA, overcoming doubt and fear through ancestral religion. The whites and their offspring work incessantly to sow the seeds of doubt and fear within Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, African black people regarding our embrace of Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion, no matter what expression it takes. It is because they know and fear the awakening that takes place within Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans when we make that embrace. It leads to the reorientation of our spirit and revolutionary-resolutionary action against the whites and their offspring and the subsequent end of white rule. They recognize that reality. When we embrace ancestral religion, we only seek to incorporate law and restore balance, accept order and reject disorder. Incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to restore balance, and incorporate law and learn what we need to learn, and reject those things, objects, and deeds, and entities we need to reject, to repel, in order to restore balance to our lives. That means incorporating divine law and divine hate. And when you embrace divine order, the two halves of that divine whole, divine law and divine hate, are embraced equally and fully and harmoniously. The whites and their offspring understand that. So when they recognize us embracing ancestral religion, they know we are embracing divine order. That means they know we are embracing divine law and love, which is the same word, and divine hate. And that means the extermination of our enemy, divinely guided. So they understand that. And they have that experience of our people embracing ancestral religion through hoodoo and juju and voodoo and so forth, and waging war against them and eradicating them, exterminating them and freeing ourselves from enslavement. So they seek to sow the seeds of dissension within us every time we begin to embrace ancestral religion. They want us to develop doubt and fear about our ancestral religious practice and culture, because in reality, they fear our full embrace of that. Those Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, Africans, the black people who become gripped by doubt and fear because of brainwashing, compromise their spiritual immunity, and then seek to sow the seeds of doubt and fear among other Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, as proxies for the whites and their offspring. They therefore work to make us believe that every quote-unquote negative event that occurs in life is attributable to our embrace of Nanasom, ancestral religion, which is totally inaccurate. So we're going to go to a couple of pieces to show how to overcome that doubt and fear, and what is the nature of that, and also ritually, how we deal with that ritually. The first thing we're going to check out, we actually made a post, a document post, a note on Facebook a few weeks back, and we addressed this topic in general. And then we're going to go to our book, The Patah Sasatim, showing the methodical process by which we overcome this doubt and fear, showing one of the modules of our Patah Sasatim curriculum, which can be used, and of course it's not only used to educate our people, but it's also a manual utilized in various situations to overcome these specific issues. So first, let's look at the information we posted in the note. When you go to our Facebook page, Kwesi Akan on Facebook, or Ojirapo, or Afuraka, Afuraikai, we give a specific story based on a specific experience to show exactly what's been taking place. Now, the image that we show here, you see Tutankhamen. That ain't Tutankhamen, of course, mispronounced King Tut and so forth. You see him there. You see Asar to his right, but then you see the Abosom, the female divinity, Nut, standing before him. And when you look at her hands, you see a wavy line of energy floating above each one of her hands. She will lay hands on Tutankhamen for ritual healing and recalibration. That water line, or that wavy line, is not only the water line, but an electromagnetic wave. That energy that we carry and utilize for healing and so forth is showing the power in the hands to lay hands and heal, to provoke energy, to transmit energy, as well as to receive energy and so forth. So that's what they're showing. Of course, we've been laying hands for thousands of years. It has nothing to do with church. And this is proof of that. Now, this is the note that we put forward, directly related to the topic for tonight. We said we thought we should share an experience, and we just want to go into detail about this experience. We brought it up before briefly. We want to go into detail about it. We should share an experience just in case you may encounter similar misinformed attacks on our Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion and culture, and how to respond. So this is how you respond when you receive these foolish attacks. And we'll get into doubt and fear. A number of years ago, we had a friend who was involved in an expression of ancestral religion. She was in her early 30s and developed a form of cancer. We recall her receiving divination from a Vodun diviner, recommending that she transfer from the hospital she was in to a different one. She and her family decided to remain at the hospital that she was in to receive treatment. Her family was unaware of this divination. This particular hospital was known around the country for having one of the best cancer wards and so forth, so the family decided to keep her in that particular hospital. The Vodun diviners recommended you need to go to a different hospital and identify a place, but ultimately they decided to remain at that hospital. The cancer spread, and she ultimately made her transition in her 30s, early 30s. The sister's mother didn't know much about her daughter's ancestral religious practice at all. Her mother is a Christian and viewed anything outside of Christianity as evil, unrighteous. Once, when speaking on the phone with her mother while the sister was still in the hospital, her mother said that she felt the reason why her daughter had become ill, suffering with cancer, was because she got involved in quote-unquote African religion. Now, as we said, the cancer ward of this particular hospital is one of the more well-known among other hospitals in the country. Our response to the mother was, quote, if we ask everyone in this cancer ward what their religion is, 99% plus of them would say Christianity. Her mother acknowledged that what I said was true. I also mentioned that if you were to go around the country and survey every cancer patient in every hospital to find out their religion, if they had a religion, 99+% of them would respond that they are Christian. Forced her mother to reassess her thought process. For if cancer was represented disobedience to God, then surely Christianity must be the ultimate disobedience to God, quote unquote, because 99+% of all cancer patients in America who die every year are Christian. Many of the staunch, devout Christians. The same can be said of illness, accidents, so-called accidents, injuries, divorce, unemployment, financial problems, etc. Any negative thing or event that manifests in a person's life. When friends and family members are against Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African Ancestral Religion, they will often tend to attribute any and every quote-unquote negative thing or event or occurrence in your life to your embrace of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, and African Ancestral Religion. However, the same rule applies. 99+% of our people do not practice ancestral religion, and thus 99+% of the people who suffer negativity in various manifestations in life every single day, as mentioned above, illness, accidents, injuries, etc., are typically Christian, while a much smaller percentage are Muslims involved in Hebrewism and other foolish, false religions. If practicing the wrong religion is the reason for negativity manifesting in the lives of Black people, then that is an indictment on all of the wrong religions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, etc. Once you make this simple, accurate observation, it ends all argument. So they can no longer move forward that foolish talk about everything that has taken place, even if something happens in the world. If there's an earthquake or hurricane and so forth, if it's in a region where Black people are, like New Orleans or Haiti and so forth, they'll say, well, they were practicing that Vodou religion, and they were openly practicing that, and this is why Haiti was hit with an earthquake, or New Orleans suffered from Hurricane Katrina and so forth. Now, of course, as we talked about in a previous broadcast, Haiti was not hit with an earthquake. The White Nile Spring detonated along the fault lines to create that occurrence. And then, of course, they would seek to blame Vodus, and brainwashed Negroes began to repeat that nonsense instantaneously. The same is true, of course, with so-called Hurricane Katrina, as we talked about last week. There was no flooding of the Ninth Ward where all of the Black people were as a result of the hurricane in any natural fashion. The hurricane, of course, passed over the area. The very next day, the entire Ninth Ward was dry. Then the whites and their offspring took their explosives and bombed the levees, caused a large breach in the levees, and then the Ninth Ward was flooded, and that was designed to flood the Ninth Ward, wipe those people out, forced them out of their homes so the whites and their offspring could later regentrify the area virtually overnight. And that's exactly what they did. So it had nothing to do with voodoo, whether it was in New Orleans or Haiti. So when brainwashed Negroes talk that nonsense, you understand. But then they will turn around, and when there's natural calamities, all white neighborhoods, all white Christian neighborhoods, or black Christian neighborhoods, when there are floods and hundreds of people are dying, displaced from their homes, thousands of people dying and so forth, they don't turn around and say, well, it must be this Christianity I'm practicing, because otherwise God wouldn't have killed us with this hurricane or with this tornado or with this flooding and so forth, like the flooding going on in South Carolina. They don't automatically say, well, it must be this Bible Belt Christianity that we're on that's killing us. They won't make that statement because they're brainwashed. Black people who follow these crackers are brainwashed. So we make those assessments, we make those arguments, and it's really not even an argument, it's simply true. And that forces them to reassess everything that they say, because clearly 99+% of the people who are suffering from natural disasters, illness, injuries, accidents, as we said, all various kinds of negativity in life, most of them are not practicing ancestral religion. So now what is your answer for them? And of course they come up with idiotic, nonsensical excuses. God works in mysterious ways. God was just testing me, all of this foolishness. But when it comes to some of our people, they immediately say, well, it must be that ancestral religion. So how do we overcome that? With regard to some people in our community, sometimes people just getting involved in ancestral religion and not fully grounded, or some people who have been tinkering around with returning to their culture, but they still are controlled by those seeds of doubt and fear. What is a method to approach that in a step-by-step fashion to eradicate that from your spirit? So now we're going to go to our Patah Sasatim. And we put the link in the chat room, and we will put that link back in the chat room. This is one of our 16 books that we have published. All of our 16 books you can get on our Nhoma page, the publications page. We just put that link in the chat room as well. Okay, so the Patah Sasatim is a 7-part curriculum, 7 modules designed to be implemented within 7 40-minute sessions, whether you have 7 days in a row or 7 weeks in a row and so forth. It's for youth as well as adults, introducing our people to various aspects of our culture in a holistic fashion. Each one of the 7 modules or tiers is connected to the abosom that govern, the deities that govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies which animate our 7-day week and govern all natural cycles on Earth, including the chronobiological cycle called the circumception cycle, the 7-day cycle within our body that affects physiological processes and cycles every 7 days. That 7-day process is linked with the 7 days of the week because that is a 7-day cycle dealing with the cyclical movement of the sun, moon, and planet. We established that 7-day week thousands of years ago and continued that practice. The whites and their offspring learned about the 7-day week from our people and implemented it later. So we have this 7-module system connected to the forces in nature that govern the 7 days of the week, and therefore that natural cycle that governs all of Earth's cycles, those divinities that govern all of Earth's natural cycles. So therefore it's a holistic system. And just to go through the 7 modules, you have Okradin, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, the value of identity. We talk about the origin of the term Africa, Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut, the Ka, the land of Afura, the creator, the Kayat, the land of Afurait, the creatress. And that deals with the value of identity. The next piece is Abatun, which is melanin, the value of physiology, and we give a 7-part definition of melanin, the chemical in our bodies that gives us our color. But it's also, of course, in the hair, the skin, the body organs, major organs and systems. Then plant life, animal life, mineral life, oceans, clouds, the black substance of space is that cosmic, quote-unquote, melanin that we find within our bodies, a portion of that. Every aspect of creation that is natural has melanin. And of course, it's in our skin and hair and eyes and so forth. It has electromagnetic properties, just like chlorophyll photosynthesizes sunlight to transform it into food or energy. Melanin does the same thing for us. A number of different things. It also transmits sound waves into food or energy for the body itself, so we go into detail about that. The next piece is Mata and Chi, divine law and divine hate. The value of function is mission. So we talk about the fact that we have a specific function to execute in creation. Just like every cell in your body has a specific function, according to the organ or system it is a component part of, and when it executes its function in the organ or organ system, it's also serving the body at the same time. And we are cells within the great divine body of Nyamewa, and Nyame is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, and Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. All other so-called people are cancerous cells, disfigured, corrupt cells that have a temporal existence in the body, just like cancerous cells that develop within your body are isolated, exterminated, and expelled from the body by the immune and lymphatic system. So we have a function as a cell within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. And once our people recognize they have a function, that means they have a life purpose, they have a life focus, and they have value. And their self-esteem that they manifest is rooted in the nature of their value, and their value and worth is rooted in that divine function they are to execute in creation. The value or worth of your heart is the function that it executes in the body. The value of the liver is defined by the function it executes in the body. The value of the spleen is defined by the function it executes in the body. Our value is defined by the function we were given by Inyamewa Inyame to execute within the great divine body as a cell. So when our people know we have a function, we become grounded. We don't feel like, oh, we were just born into a chaotic world and against our will and so forth. We know we came into the world with a function, and we are driven by that function. We have the Nyantapo section, the 7-part decision-making process rooted in our ancestral culture. The Obrabo section talking about ethical life, the value of good character. The previous was the value of intelligent judgment. Asebie, which is responsibility, the value of expression. And then the final piece is She and HYEBEA, tools, the value of execution. And this is what we're going to get to tonight. She and HYEBEA we talked about last week. We talked about Oshe, talking about overcoming adversity through ritual invocation. And now we're going to talk about HYEBEA, which is the feminine aspect of that term. And we're talking about the tools that we have within our culture to overcome doubt and fear. When people become frozen by fear, frozen by doubt, and so forth, that not only can cripple you physiologically through stress, leading to disease, and ultimately can lead actually to death. So your perception of what's going on, how you respond to it, how you force your body muscles and nerves to contract and become stressed and cause stress on your organs, and they're not able to function properly, and stress on your cells and so forth. Your response, the manner in which you respond to situations and incorporate information, and the manner in which you do so can determine your health or your lack of health, disease, and so forth. That happens physiologically, but it also happens spiritually, and that affects you emotionally, psychologically, and so forth. So, when we talk about HYEBEA, we're going to go to page. Let's get the page in the Patasa system real quick. Page 36. So in this particular module, it's called She and HYEBEA. And it's a 7-part module. And then we have, of course, the information, the detailed information, and the lesson plan and so forth after dealing with the 7-part of the She HYEBEA module. The terms She and HYEBEA, as we talked about last week, industry language describes the male and female aspect of the capacity within Afurakani, the Afuraitkaitnit individual to execute his or her function, divine function. The function you came into the world to execute as a cell within the great divine body. Function in our common culture is called Nkra and Nkrabea, the male and female aspect of that divine function. So, not only are you given a function to execute in creation, say you're an immune system cell within the great divine body, you have that natural function to seek out disorder, destroy the disordered cells so that you can maintain the integrity of the organism of the body. That's your function. That's the immune system cell's function. If you have that function, you'll be naturally inclined towards seeking out disorder in the family, in the community, in the clan, in the nation, Afuraitkaitnut nation, to preserve the integrity of the nation so that people can live in a harmonious fashion and not create a great deal of conflict and, destroy each other. So you will seek out disorder and eradicate it for the benefit of the larger mind of the Afuraitkaitnut nation. You have that natural inclination because that is your life focus as an immune system cell within the great divine body. So that's your nkra, the male and female aspect of your function, what you are to execute and the manner in which you are to execute. Nkra is the divine function. Nkra beya means way or manner. It also is a feminine aspect. So you have a function, but then you have a specific manner in which you have to execute the function. The nkra, the function, nkra beya, the manner in which you are to execute that function. But you're not just given a blueprint of what you are to do, what kind of function you have, the nature of the function and all of that. That's the blueprint. But you also have to have a specific kind of power in order to execute the function. You're not just given a blueprint, but you're also given the power you need to execute. If you need fiery power to execute that immune system function, that policing function, that military function, then you're given fiery power to do so by the Supreme Being. That is the domain of the She and HYEBEA. She means force or command, to implement, to fix, to appoint, and so forth. And HYEBEA is the manner in which that force, that compulsion, that impulsion is engaged, utilized. You have the capacity, energically, the capacity to wield the forces you have been given. If you've been given fiery energy to execute a fiery function, then you have the capacity to unlock that fiery energy. Open up the valve of that energy and shut down the energy. Expand it and contract it. You have She and HYEBEA. You have the capacity to wield that energy you have been given. If you've been given watery energy to heal and, calm and soothe and, bring people to a state of balance, whether it's physiologically with, healing through medicine, through plant life, mineral life, and so forth, or if it's spiritual healing, laying on of hands, energetic healing, and so forth that we've been doing for thousands of years. Either way, if you have a specific kind of watery energy that you've been given to heal and you're a child of a water divinity and so forth, that's the energy you have been given to execute that healing function, that cool, watery function. But you have to be able to have the capacity to open up and unleash that watery energy, that magnetic energy, and also to close it down when necessary. You have to have a She and HYEBEA, a capacity for compulsion and impulsion, to fix, to arrange, to execute, to command that energy. So you're given a function, but you're also given energy used to execute that function, unique unto you. And we talked about last week how it comes to the patriclan and metriclan divinity. That's the energy you're given, but you open and close it with your She and HYEBEA. You have that switch. You can flip the switch on and flip it off. You can turn it on and turn it off. You can expand it, open up full throttle, and then you can shut it down. You have the capacity to unleash your energy and pull your energy back. So this is what we're dealing with. That's what the She and HYEBEA are. That's why we refer to them as tools used to execute. Now, with respect to our cultural reclamation, Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut must utilize certain fundamental tools which allow us to fully embrace our culture once again, thus regaining our normalcy. We must employ our She and HYEBEA, our capacity to command the energy that we have to execute our function. When you can command the energy you have to execute your function, then you come full circle. You not only know what you're supposed to do, but you have the capacity to execute. A paraplegic, as we said, knows what they need to do, but they do not have the power to execute. So it's not enough to just know it, to have full knowledge of it and memorize all of the facts and brilliantly, articulate the facts of what you should be doing and why you should be doing it and all these different things. If you don't have the power to move and execute, then it means nothing. So if all you do is spend time incorporating and imbibing yourself with information, but then you don't act on the information you've imbibed and you don't utilize the energy you have been given by the Supreme Being to execute, then you're wasting time. You're a spiritual paraplegic. And of course, we see individuals like that. But sometimes the reason they get to that point is not just because of immaturity. Sometimes it's just immaturity. Sometimes it's because of criminality. But sometimes it's because of doubt and fear. And of course, that's rooted in immaturity, but it manifests as doubt and fear. They're incorporating information, learning about a number of different things, but then once adversity hits, and even though they know they're supposed to overcome challenges and so forth, if someone plants that seed of doubt, which can manifest and morph into fear, and then they begin to second-guess everything that they've learned. Then they begin to start looking, well, maybe I'm in the wrong, quote-unquote, religion. That's like saying I'm in the wrong species. Like maybe I should stop being a human being and start trying to imitate a zebra or a fish. Maybe humanity is not working for me. That's how idiotic it is to say that maybe ancestral religion is not working for me. That's because people have no understanding when they say that about what ancestral religion is. Ancestral religion is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. You are a cell within the great divine body of the Supreme Being. Just like you are a speck on the earth mother, you are a cell within the great divine body. You can't step outside of that and try something else. Like, well, living in the created universe is not working for me. Let me try something else. You did not create the universe, notwithstanding the idiots who think that they're God and they created the universe with a thought. So, we have this methodical process. When you look on page 36 and you see the 7-part structure, we can deal with the first few of them, the first 5, because that's all we need with regard to utilizing this HYEBEA module to overcome this doubt and fear. How do you overcome the doubt and fear when someone is challenging your ancestral religious practice? And you may say something or respond in a certain way, whether it's family members or significant others or friends or co-workers or whoever. You may respond on the outside with, umbrage and so forth, and you may decide to, push back on them. But then deep down inside, they stuck you and hit a nerve because you had some doubt or some fear somewhere anyway. The first thing you do is take this first step. The first step in this She and HYEBEA section, these tools. She is the force, the command, even the way it's spoken. She, releasing that energy to, and She also means to burn, but the force, to command, to impel, to compel, and so forth. But then Bea, which is the Oshe, we talked about last week, that forcing, commanding, impelling, and talking about the divinities. But then the She, Bea, which is the title of tonight's show, is the manner, Bea, of the She, of the compulsion, of the impulsion, of the command, of the force. So the manner in which you approach it and utilize that energy. The first thing you do is focus on trustery. Trustery teaches, guides, nourishes, and heals. Now, trustery, a term we use instead of his story, we use trustery, a true and accurate account of previous events, true historical, true historic, and so forth. When you have that doubt and fear about what you're engaged in, the first thing you return to is trustery. Sankofa, return, go and grab. Trustery is a tool which teaches Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut about the origin of creation, our origin, the nature of who we are and how we are to function in creation, the fact that we are a cell within the great divine body, reminding our people of that schematic. Trustery nourishes our understanding of reality by showing what we have accomplished and where we left off. By this understanding, we gain insight into our potentials for doing. Trustery heals by showing us what mistakes we made in the past and how we overcame them. It shows us how disorder came into the world, the origins of the whites and their offspring, their culture and their false religions, and how we came to be under their control. It also shows how those of us who embraced our culture fully and rejected the whites and their offspring, their culture and false religions, freed ourselves from their domination time and time again. Trustery answers the questions of identity, function, method, agency, and inevitability. Those who do not know their trustery do not know who they are, why they are here, their value, how they are to function, how they are to receive assistance, and what happens after death. Without such knowledge, the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit individual is ignorant, malnourished, and in a state of spiritual disease. So first we focus on trustery, reality, what took place. And when people study the Kukutuntum, for example, learning about the origin and nature of creation, Amin and Aminne, Ra and Ra'et, Ka and Ka'et, Afuraka, Afuraikai, African, and so forth, the nature of the great mother and great father of the Supreme Being, the nature of the creator and creatress who are grandchildren of the Supreme Being, the nature of how the divinities come into existence in creation, understanding they are the spirits that animate the suns, the moons, the planets, the oceans, the rivers, atmosphere, black substance of space, fire, water, thunder, lightning, and so forth. Understanding that just as your spirit animates your physical body, the spirit of a lion or any other animal animates the body of that animal. The spirits of plant life animate these living entities. The spirits of mineral life animate mineral life. The spirits animating the various aspects of creation, planet, sun, moon, stars, and so forth, animate those physical bodies of creation as well. So we understand that we recognize we are part of a system. We are a cell within the great divine body. We go into detail about that information in the Kukutuntum. And then we prove conclusively that Jesus never existed, Yeshua never existed, Isa never existed, Muhammad never existed, Allah, Yahweh, Buddha, Brahman, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, David, all of these fictional cartoon characters never existed of any race or in any form whatsoever. We prove that on every level. We show the deities from ancient Kemet from whom specific descriptive titles were stolen and applied to fictional white characters who never existed, and gave them a carnal existence in so-called Palestine. Never happened. Thousands of years later, they manufacture these stories based off corruptions of fragments of information about deities from Kemet operating through creation. So we talk about, for example, Muhammad coming from the name of the divinity Muhammad, the waters Muhammad, the northern Nile, the spirit that animates the northern Nile right now, the spiritual force that we've been communicating with that's been possessing our people thousands of years, that spirit Muhammad, the waters Muhammad, the northern Nile, the white Nile spring corrupted into Muhammad and said Muhammad overran the country and introduced Islam and all of this other nonsense. That is a corruption of the reality that Muhammad, the spirit of the waters of the northern Nile, overruns the country every year, that floods the country every year. And months later, once the flood waters recede, there's black silt that has been deposited on the banks of the river, and people go out and plant their food so they can have abundance and so forth. So this is the overrunning of the country every year by Muhammad. We show the same kind of information with Yeshua, Isa, Jesus, Moses, Aaron, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, all of these fictional cartoon characters. When people go through that trustery and recognize the reality of that cosmology, and of course later they engage in ritual and deal directly with these divinities to know who they are. But when they understand that trustery in detail, then you remove all doubt. There's no longer, well, maybe Christianity works better for me. You understand in reality that Christianity is absolutely idiotic. It doesn't matter what form it is. There's no such thing as some ancient Christianity, like original black Christianity from Ethiopia and Egypt and Coptic and Orthodox. That's idiotic, from Negroes who are still trying to hang on to that foolishness. Brainwashed black people in Ethiopia, Kemet, who were enslaved by the whites and their offspring, embraced that stupidity and incorporated it into their culture. So it had nothing to do with black people creating Christianity. There were no Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people sitting around creating Christianity or Islam or Hebrewism None of those things are a creation. They were created specifically by the whites and their offspring as an attack on black people and ancestral religion. They sought to remove our minds away from the deities and force us to worship them, try to make us believe the deities do not exist, and therefore we only need to follow their one fake deity. But in order to do so, they had to make their fake religion look like our ancestral religious practices, so they changed names of deities into fictional cartoon characters or into quote-unquote angels and so forth, reduced their role, elevated a fictional deity who never existed, made it a masculine fake deity, and they themselves will be the representatives of that fake divinity who does not exist. But when you give truth-story, true information, you remove all of that doubt instantaneously. And then they have to reverse that so-called brainwashing. The black person who was operating based on doubt and fear and so forth, once you give them that true grounding and truth-story through the Kukutuntum, that they know who these real divinities are and who these fictional cartoon characters in the Bible, Quran, and Talmud, and Kabbalah, and so forth, and the Kabbalion and so forth are, then they challenge these other Negroes. When they come to them talking about Jesus and Christianity, prove it beyond a reasonable or a doubt, period. Prove that Jesus existed. Prove it explicitly. If you cannot prove it, don't bring it to me. There's no such thing as we're going to accept the nonsense until you can prove that it didn't happen. No, we're not going to accept anything until you can give absolute 100% proof that Jesus existed, Muhammad existed, and so forth. Of course, they can't give any proof because these characters never existed. And we have proven that they do not. And once our people embrace that, then they overcome that. We've had many individuals, simply by listening to the Kukutuntum, the ancestral jurisdiction, one time, who left Christianity, left Islam, Hebrewism, left Moorishism, left all of these foolish practices, and began to return to their ancestral religious practice because they finally got real information, whether they were people who were just congregants or imams and sheikhs and reverends and so forth in these fake religions. They left them alone, and now they have embraced their culture, embraced their ancestral names, and are going out to engage the process of etchisan, or ancestral religious reversion, to help other individuals get off that nonsense. Some of our people thought that we would not be able to get our people out of Christianity, so we just need to work with them where they are. Totally false, nonsensical. Or that we shouldn't talk about religion because that divides us. Totally false, idiotic, nonsensical. Until we deal with ancestral religion, then we won't be dealing with anything. Our people will continually be enslaved. So first we deal with the truth story. What took place? The origin of creation, the nature of the divinities, function in creation that they execute, our relationship to them, and what took place chronologically with our people over time, and the invasions of the whites and offspring, their origin as spirits of disorder, their invasions, the wars with them, their manufacturing of fake religions based on our ancestral religious practice. Once they have that true story, all of the doubt is eradicated, coming from other people outside of them with regard to the nature of their ancestral religious practice. The next piece, so that's true story is first. Then the next piece is religion. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion is the ritual explication of truth. That's the second principle in this 7-part HYEBEA tools module. First, you get grounded in true story. What took place? What happened? Where do we come from? Ultimately, from Amen and Amenet, Nyame, Nyamewa, and our function in creation as cells within the great divine body, and our true story, what has taken place over thousands of years. Then the next piece is religion. Nanasom, ancestral religion, is the ritual explication of truth. That's the next step of that overcoming that doubt and fear. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion. Nanasom, as we use that catch-all term for ancestral religion. In essence, as we said, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. It is not a system of belief or faith. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion is rooted in direct experiential knowledge of reality, truth in the physical and spiritual realm. Through these ritual practices, these ritual tools, we harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order, which necessarily includes the rejection of disorder and its purveyor. The principles underpinning all of the ancestral religions of Afuraka, Afuraitkaitnut are fundamentally the same, the only differences being those of unique cultural expression. The pseudo-religions, false religions of the whites and their offspring include all forms of Christianity, Islam, Hebrewism, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Vedanta, Taoism, Kabbalism, Hermeticism, Gnosticism, occultism, New Age, quote-unquote pseudo-spirituality, quote-unquote Native American pseudo-spirituality, and more. The false religions contain fictional make-believe characters who never actually existed in any form. And we've listed those characters: Jesus, Yeshua ben Pandera, Muhammad, Bilal, Moses, Aaron, Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, David, Solomon, Sheba, Menelik, Buddha, Brahman, the Hindu Devas and Devis, and so forth. Yahweh, the Elohim, Allah, all of them. Pseudo-religions and their fictional characters are actually white perversions of ancient Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religious practices and symbolism, taking fragments from a title of a divinity and making that the name of a fake character, getting a white statue of a white cracker of himself, making that statue, forcing it into the shrines of the deities of ancient Kemet, as the Ptolemy rulers did and the later Romans and so forth. But then they have to come up with a name for that little white statue. They're going to take a fragment of a name, of a descriptive title from an actual divinity in ancient Kemet, add that fragmented title onto this little white sculpture. Then give that little white sculpture, now that it has a name, a story, a human story, or a story for a divinity. Taking fragments from the functions of actual deities in creation, taking those fragments, corrupting them, and then adding them to that little white statue. Now the little white statue has a face, it has a name, and a quote-unquote life story or a function, and now people are trying to teach our people that this entity actually once existed or exists as a deity, and we need to worship this little white cracker statue with this fake name and a fake truthstory. This is what took place. This is the origin of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hebrewism, and all of that nonsense. You have idiots talking about Ma'at Islam and talking about Islam was created by Africans as an extension of ancestral religion from ancient Kemet. Pure stupidity. They're directly lying to our people deliberately. No truth whatsoever. These Negroes recognize that our people are embracing our ancestral religious tradition, our culture, leaving Christianity, Islam, and Hebrewism and all of that nonsense in droves. So as the parasitic entities that they are, they seek to leech off of and suck the blood from ancient Kemet and try to incorporate that into their little fake religions to try to give them some kind of standing. They can't stand on their own because they're fake. And our people are realizing that in droves and are leaving these fake religions in the highest numbers ever. So these clowns are now parasitically attaching themselves to ancient Kemet and to the Yoruba tradition, our Khan tradition, and trying to say, well, you know, these Shango was a Muslim and these deities are Muslims and all of this other idiocy, knowing that it's 100% false. And anybody who does a cursory investigation dismisses with that stupidity summarily, with ease. So we deal with truthstory, we deal with ancestral religion. When people begin to engage ritual practice and begin to experience these divinities, then it's no longer speculation. And we all have the capacity to do so. Not only do we have the capacity, but we also have the responsibility. The divinity that assigned to our head region pre-incarnation, that divinity comes into the world with us, guiding us in our head region towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order every moment of every day. It is our responsibility to align with the pull of that divinity, of our soul, our ka'at, called okra and okra in the Akan language, or Inu in Yoruba. It is our responsibility, not just the capacity, but our responsibility. Spirituality is about aligning with that divinity dwelling in the head, because that divinity only pulls us in the direction that Nyame directs it to pull us. So, this is what we're dealing with when we're talking about returning to ancestral religion. The rejection of what is false is the basis of being grounded in what is true. Grounded. Talk about doubt and fear, somebody becomes uprooted and they're no longer grounded, they're angry. The pseudo-false religions and their false characters and so-called deities must be rejected permanently by Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut. The rejection of what is false is the basis of being grounded in what is true. The foolish embrace of these perversions by Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut can only lead to misinformation and misguided, disordered, self-destructive behavior within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut population worldwide. And we see extreme manifestations of that every day, whether it's skin lightening, hair straightening, idiots standing on the corner talking about their Hebrews, and white police are representatives of divine order and all kinds of nonsense, self-hating, self-destructive individuals engaged in attacks on our own people at the behest of the whites and offspring. Many of these individuals, of course, are conscious agents of the whites and their offspring. The various organizers, heads of these Hebrew groups, Muslim groups, Christian groups, they all are agents of the whites and their offspring. They are funded by the whites and their offspring, no matter what kind of rhetoric they use on the street. The reason why they're out on the street and have been unmolested for decades, some of them nearly 100 years, is because they are funded by the whites and their offspring. So-called Hebrews talking about the white Edomites and the white man and the devil and so forth, they are funded by these white Jews. They get money from them, they get protection from them so they can continue to spout that idiocy. Of course, their leadership does not share with you that they receive funding from these white so-called Jews. Black, quote-unquote, Muslims receive funding from these white Arabs. No matter how much they say the black man is God and the white man is the devil and so forth, they prove to you very often that they know that's not something they believe. But they are funded by these white Arabs, and internally they see it as a source of pride. They're like, oh, well, listen, we're doing, they have to acknowledge us and they're giving us money because we're doing the real thing. But they're simply agents of these white Arabs. The same thing with these Negro Christians, of course, they worship openly a white cracker fake divinity, but they receive funding and support by white Christian organizations as well as the government of the United States. So they are supported. And of course, these Negroes who are talking about Hinduism and Vedanta and pseudo New Age spirituality, pseudo metaphysics and so forth, when you look around and who they end up connecting with, they begin to make all kinds of metaphysical excuses, pseudo-metaphysical excuses about why they need to incorporate some of the whites in their offspring, and we can't engage in hate because that's a lower level vibrational frequency, all of that stupidity. They are funded and supported by these crackers. This is why they teach that nonsense year after year after year. So we must understand that reality. We've become grounded in truth. We reject these falsehoods permanently. There's no, well, we're going to just let people be who they are. We're going to respect different religions because that's what African people do. That's an absolute lie. We do not respect lies. We don't respect disorder. We don't respect fake religion. We only have respect for real religion. And the only real religion is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion. Whether it's any expression of Akan or Yoruba or HYEBEA or Fon or ancestral expressions of ancient Kanat, Kemet, Hoodoo, Juju, Vodou, and so forth, the various traditions, these are expressions of reality, the ritual explication of truth, as we said earlier. Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, realize that spirituality and our religion are one and the same. We did a broadcast on the etymology of religion and spirit. We can no longer attempt to force our spirituality into false religions and the self-destructive ideas and behavior they were designed by whites to ingrain within us. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion, the only real religion, and spirituality are identical. Only false religions are in conflict with spirituality. So all of this nonsense about I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, all of these silly slogans that you hear the whites and their offspring put forward and our people repeat, that's based on a lack of understanding of who we are. Spirituality and religion is identical. Fake religion is not identical with spirituality. And when the whites and their offspring talk about spirituality, they're not talking about anything real. The only spirituality that exists is that which is born from our ancestral blood circles as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. And of course, all non-black people are banned from that. They are spirits of disorder who have no capacity to engage the forces in nature. They're like, as we always say, those two magnets on the table with the same polarity facing, they repel one another. We as spirits of order, as well as the forces in nature as spirits of order and all naturally occurring entities in creation, operate in harmony with divine order. The whites and their offspring are the cancerous cells within the body of black humanity. They are spirits of disorder. They are repulsive, like that magnet being repelled. They can't even get close to the other magnet. The whites and their offspring of spirits of disorder have a repulsive spirit. That is their nature. And they will continue to have that until we make them extinct. There is no reversing that. The reason they have a repulsive spirit is because they separated from the Kra millennia ago, and they no longer have that Kra. So they are spirits of disorder, spirits without that anchor in divine order, based on their own behavior, based on their own spirit, based on who they are. So there's no redemption, quote unquote, for them, and we should have no desire for that. Just like there is no redemption for cancerous cells, they are destroyed and expelled. That's the only desire we have for cancerous cells in the body, as well as the body of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit humanity. So we deal with trustery first and have that foundation of knowledge. Then we deal with ancestral religion, recognize the reality of who the divinities are, who the ancestresses and ancestors are, and engage them experientially. And once you engage them experientially and get to know them directly, then you don't only have a knowledge, a foundation of information of what took place historically. Now you're dealing with the forces in nature and the ancestresses and ancestors who created that trustery, lived that trustery. So you have direct knowledge experientially of who they are. Then we get into judgment. We can make proper judgments when we're grounded historically in spirit. And that overcomes doubt and fear. Judgment is wise, yet misjudgment is that which is unwise. So that's third principle within this 7-part HYEBEA module. And when we talk about that notion of judgment, we say judgment is an expression of wisdom. Non-judgment as well as misjudgment are expressions of ignorance. Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut have always understood that proper judgment is the basis of the security of a sovereign nation and the preservation of a balanced society. The whites and their offspring have attempted through pseudo-religion to teach us, quote unquote, don't judge. For they understood that if we were to apply proper judgment to them, we would embrace the divine mandate to reject them outright and permanently. This will mean their loss of control over us and their ultimate eradication. When we engage our timeless method of making decisions, we arrive at proper judgment. We should be judging everyone and everything in order that we may live and interact in the world in harmony with our AKANFO, our divine function. When we come to this realization and put the principles of judgment into practice, only then have we gained maturity. As long as we refuse to make judgment, we remain gullible and immature. You are a foolish child when you do not make judgment. And the whites and their offspring want you to be foolish children, so they teach spiritual to not judge. Of course, while they're misjudging us every moment of every day, they would tell you, well, you shouldn't be judging anything. We are to judge everyone and everything every second of every day. You make proper judgments. That's the hallmark of maturity, making proper decisions rooted in proper judgment. When you judge a thing properly or an entity properly, you know how to interact or avoid that interaction or overcome this enemy. If there's toxins in your system, you have to assess the situation and make a proper judgment. If you're going to say, well, I don't want to judge these toxins in any kind of way, I don't want to put any labels on them, I just want to let them be the way they are, then you develop cancer and you die. It's pure stupidity. And we apply that stupidity to interacting with individuals coming from Christianity and Islam and all this other nonsense, talking about don't judge and turn the other cheek and so forth, that is established for the enslavement, the perpetual enslavement of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut individual specifically. When we're mature, we overcome that idiocy and we make proper judgments every moment of every day, and we utilize a timeless decision-making process which we deal with in the book. Okay. And so the other piece we want to deal with is, that's judgment, that's the third piece, maturity. Proper judgment is the foundation of maturity. And of course, as we talked about judgment and we engage that process, then that leads to maturity. That manifests maturity. And if you do not make proper judgments, of course, what is the result? You're engaged in gullibility, you're engaged in immaturity, being taken advantage of. That happens individually. Of course, that also happens culturally as a group. We are still operating as an immature group. Mature people make proper judgments and then make plans based on those judgments to protect themselves and exterminate their enemies. That's what we do when we are mature. If we have not gotten to that point, we are still children seeking for someone else to do what we need to do for ourselves, to protect us and eradicate our enemies. So we get on our knees and pray to a fake divinity to engage that process, as opposed to utilizing our own energy in connection with real divinities to execute that process. And we talked about some of that last week. Okay, so the next piece is revolution-resolution. Two halves of the divine whole of intelligence. When Earth moves around Sun and returns to its place of origin, it has made a complete revolution. Return to your ancestral origin is complete revolution. When Earth, through revolution, transmits its power through the seasons, it has brought about a complete resolution. Transmit power through the cycle of revolution brings about our complete resolution. Revolution and resolution are two halves of one whole intelligence. Now, of course, we deal with that in part 3 of our book, Madanechi, Divine Law, Love and Divine Hate. And in the Patah Sasatim, there's a specific angle that we deal with regard to this HYEBEA, the tools of how to function. Revolution, resolution as a tool of cultural reorientation is defined as the right of return and the right of reconstitution. In practice, it is also the right, as in ritual, R-I-T-E, right of return and the right of reconstitution. The return is to our ancestral culture, our way of living, our normalcy. It is return to the pact we made with Nyame before we came into the world, and a reconstitution of the cultural values and institutions rooted in those values which make our adhering to that divine pact possible. We have a right to return to ourselves and to reconstitute ourselves. We must engage in the rite, the rituals, in order to return to ourselves and reconstitute ourselves in harmony with divine order. We have that, thus recognize disorder and move to reject it, thus manifesting intelligence in the true sense. Gets to the point of engaging ritually, revolution and resolution, returning to that point of origin, our function. What do we come into the world to execute? Why are we here? We learned that directly from our Kra, the divinity dwelling in the head region. We return to that divine pact we made before we even came into the womb and so forth. And once we're grounded in that knowledge, then we execute. We don't just know it and spread information. We execute. We utilize the and HYEBEA, wield that energy of compulsion and impulsion to unleash the energy we have been given and utilize that energy in a harmonious fashion based on our ancestral protocol so that we can execute, so we can fulfill the function we came into the world to execute. We engage ritual practice with the Nananom Nsamampo. And we did a whole broadcast on ancestral shrine communication and liberation. Deal with the abosom. We did broadcast dealing with the abosom as well, dealing with the okra, and the various aspects of the spiritual and that. We engage those ritual processes in order to return to ourselves and reconstitute ourselves. And once we do so, we are in harmony with divine order. And we have therefore recognized this order, moved to reject it. This is a manifestation of intelligence. Intelligence is returning to the source, revolution, return to the source, grasping wisdom, intelligence from the source, and then resolution, bringing resolution to the issue that you return to the source to grab that information for. Revolution, which is the return, and resolution, which is the resolve. To return and resolve. Revolt and resolve. Revolution and resolution, two halves of the divine whole called Inyanta, or divine wisdom. The wisdom itself, governed by Tuhuti and Seshat, the male and female force of divine wisdom. They are the governor and the governess of those two poles of revolution and resolution. That is the connection between divine wisdom and revolution, divine wisdom and resolution. Of course, we did a broadcast dealing with Tuhuti, Seshat, revolution and resolution, and how they govern those poles. Of course, the whites and offspring don't associate divinities of wisdom with revolution. They'll only focus on revolution, not focusing on resolution, and then they corrupt that information as well. And then we imitate them, and we run around talking about we're revolutionaries. We don't say we're resolutionaries and revolutionaries. We say we're revolutionaries, and we approach that concept the way the whites and offspring have misinformed us to approach it. And we have no grounding. But when we get back to our culture, we recognize Tahuti and Seshat govern the poles of revolution and resolution. Wisdom is associated with resolution. Wisdom is associated with resolution. In fact, those two poles make up the two halves of the divine whole, which is wisdom. So that's key. So those first 5 steps of the and HYEBEA get grounded in trustery that overcomes that doubt when people bring that false information. Trustery of not only ancient trustery, but origin of creation, cosmology, and so forth, what took place with us, but also trustery as we talked about in contemporary terms. Even with regard to when we utilize that example of the woman saying, well, listen, the only reason this sister is suffering from cancer and so forth is because she got involved in that ancestral religion, that African religion. You first hit them with trustery. What about all these other people? How did they get to the hospital? Why is 99+% of the people in the cancer wards all Christian? Therefore, if Christianity, being engaged in the wrong religion leads to cancer, then Christianity must be the one that's leading everybody to cancer. That's true story. It's factual. There's nothing someone can say about that but agree, whether they want to agree or not. So you hit them with what actually is taking place, reality. Removes all doubt from misinformation that someone is trying to force on you. Then you deal with religion, the second piece. Recognizing that ancestral religion is a ritual explication of truth. So when you engage religious practice, then you come to know the divinities that give birth to these true historical events. They make the trustery and they animate us to engage in certain kinds of behavior, but it gives birth to our true historical record, because the behaviors we engage in, of course, and the interactions that we have with one another, that those become our true historical record. When we're animated by Abosom and Nsamampo and so forth, they are making the trustery through animating and motivating and guiding us and so forth. So when you engage in ritual practice, you attune to the forces in nature who undergird all events in creation that are natural and harmonious, and then you learn specifically who you are. You don't just learn about it, but you come to know it and infuse it into your very being. That removes that doubt and fear about ancestral religious practice. People talking about practice, but when you engage the abosom, you know who they are. And nobody can make you fearful when you actually engage them. When you do not engage them and just simply listen to what people say about deities or about spirituality or about quote-unquote witchcraft and all this other nonsense, but you're not actually engaged in the process of your own ancestrally inherited practice that comes through your blood circle, then you become swayed by idiots and agents. Ritual explication of truth, engaging the ritual practice is key. Once you engage those two principles, truthsy and religion, then you can make proper judgment. And when people come at you with this nonsense, trying to sow the seeds of fear and doubt, you can make these proper judgments because you have the truthsy, you have the knowledge of what is taking place, and then you also have the actual experiential knowledge. You have the ritual experience that confirms what you have learned, what you have incorporated consciously. Now you can make proper judgment, judging what is wise, looking at nonsense and rejecting it outright without even entertaining it. We are under no obligation to entertain idiocy, foolishness, nonsense coming from people who are trying to force the misinformation and pseudo-culture of the whites and our offspring upon us. We execute those judgments and we reject those individuals and entities. Then, of course, that leads to maturity. That manifests our mature character. We have grown up. We have become men and women when we engage these principles. And then the final piece with regard to this revolution-resolution. Returning to that pact you made with Nyamewa, Nyame, and refreshing that every single day through that ritual practice. You return to yourself, return to your Krawa, your soul, your divine consciousness. Return to that specific function you came into the world to execute. Refreshing your spirit with that information. And then engaging the resolutionary process. Returning to that pact, returning to that energy complex, returning to that base of knowledge, that reservoir of knowledge, and you utilize that reservoir of knowledge and energy that you have gained from the return so that you can engage this other half, which is resolve or resolution. You revolt so that you can resolve. You engage in revolution so that you can affect resolution and bring resolution to issues that have manifested contemporarily, as well as those issues that were left unresolved by previous generations because they did not engage these processes. So, okay, so what we have is there are about 20 minutes left in the broadcast. I'm going to look online in the chat room real quick. If you have a question or comment on the phone line, it's the number 1. If you have a question or comment, of course, in the chat room, we're just looking through to make sure we didn't miss any questions. And we see some comments. We just want to make sure we did not miss any questions there. Okay, Medase for posting that information in the chat room. And for those who came on a little bit later, well, what was posted in the chat room is some of the links to the pages. And for those who came on later, what we were talking about earlier in the program with regard to the Egwa Marketplace, showing everything as a business organization or institution per week that we target for 52 weeks, one business organization institution in our community that's serving community in a positive capacity and also maintaining our ancestral religious values in the process. This week, coming up on Memenida, Saturday, October 17th in Washington, D.C., 12 p.m. to 7 p.m., we are hosting our first our first annual Hoodoo Nation Festival. From 12 to 7, it is a free event for the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit family. So you can come out all day long. We have live food vendors, natural food, vegan food, and so forth. Natural soaps, shea butter, hair care products, body products, natural medicines, herbs, roots, and so forth. clothing, handmade, a number of different products, artwork and so forth, a number of different products that you can get from our vendors. At the same time, we're having presentations. We have the program. The itinerary is on the website now, the Hoodoo Mind site, so you can go to that. We will be doing a presentation on Hoodoo, the Akan Ancestral Religion in North America. We have Kamal Makesi Tahuti talking about his book, How to Make a Negro Christian, showing how the white snarl spring deliberately infected our people with Christianity in a methodical process, step by step, during coming towards the close of the end of enslavement, because they thought enslavement was over, because we forced the end of enslavement through our revolutionary and resolutionary actions, waging war against the white snarl spring for years, massacring them. They were forced to end enslavement, but their next move was to enslave the minds of our people through Christianity. And part of the reason why I will be talking about that, of course, because some people have infected hoodoo with Christianity, seeking to misinform people that the Bible is part of hoodoo, which, of course, it is not. So he'll be doing the presentation on his book. We will be talking about our book, Hoodoo People, Akan Ancestral Religion in North America, coming from ancient Kanit, Nubia, to West Afuraitkaitnut, to North America. And then, of course, we have Ama Asase Ajay, the owner of Asase Heals, and she'll be talking about her healing tinctures, how she extracts the medicine from plant life and mineral life and so forth based on her ancestrally inherited methodology to heal our people from natural plant life, animal life, plant life and mineral life, roots, herbs, and so forth. So we'll have these presentations. Of course, they're all free throughout the course of the day. We also will have our ceremony dealing with Oshwe libation and our Hoodoo Mind, Samai Komre, Ancestral Shrine, and so forth. So we'll have a number of activities going on. You can come out and spend the day there, bring the family and friends and so forth. Afurakani people only, of course. And we look forward to everyone coming out. We do have 2 more spaces, as a matter of fact, we should mention, for vending at the event. 2 more tables. We provide the tables, a 6-foot table and 2 chairs. The vending for the all-day event for 1 table is $25. So when you go to the Hoodoo Mind page, you can go to the vendor registration application and fill that out and send that to us. Of course, you can make the payment online as well, on that page as well. So we do have 2 more spaces. Of course, that is first come, first serve, and we will send you all of the information once you send out the vendor registration application. And we will also be passing out a journal to everyone who attends the event, which will include articles on hoodoo, as well as the information for all of the vendors and other individual Black businesses, organizations, and institutions. It will be part of a business directory. We will have the softcover version, but also the online ebook version on the Hoodoo Mind page as well, and that will be coming up this week. The release of the ebook version. Of course, the softcover version will be given out at the event on Saturday. If you have any questions or comments about that, of course, email us, hit us up on our webpage on the Hoodoo Mind page, the contact us section on the page if you have any questions about the event. We do have a 6-page flyer that you can download and share. We also have a Hoodoo Mind page on Facebook. You can download that information. We did 3 broadcasts on the Hoodoo Mind Festival. You can download those broadcasts as well, and so forth. There is a question. Can you speak to the foolishness involved when our people go to pseudo-spiritualists, like for so-called psychic and ritualists? Also, how to tell the difference between those who are legit and the fakes. And another question, what exactly is a 7-day candle? That's just a candle that's in a tall glass structure, and if you were to burn it, typically, and just let it burn, it takes about 7 days to burn totally out all of the wax down. Question, will some of the Hoodoo Nation Festival be posted on the social network? We had a request with regard to that, which we may fulfill with regard to broadcasting via Blog Talk Radio during some of the presentation. You only get a 3-hour window with Blog Talk Radio, so we're looking into that. We possibly may do that as well. So, and if we do so, then you'll be able to access it via going through the social network or going directly to Blog Talk Radio Live to get to that. We may look at something on Ustream as well, just depends. So that'll be coming. We'll make an announcement. Okay, and the question with regard to individuals who are pseudo-ritualists and so forth, there are many out here calling themselves priests, priestesses, spiritualists, psychics, mediums, and promising all the various things that they can do. The key for us is go to your Nsamanfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors who have been assigned to you, of course, since you were before you got into the womb. You have certain members of your patriclan and matriclan who are connected to you spiritually by the Supreme Being to help give you guidance throughout your life. You have specific abosom who are connected to your patriclan and matriclan, as well as the abosom, of course, that's connected to your head, and all of them support the direction of the divinity that in your head region. So, when you deal with your direct ancestresses and ancestors, your Nanano Nsamanfo, they will guide you as to whether or not you need to connect with someone ritually, and if so, they will guide you to those people who are, harmonious. If they do not confirm someone, then you don't deal with the individual. If they do not push you towards someone, or if you come in contact with someone and then you go to your ancestral shrine and you feel something negative pulling you away from engaging that individual, then you don't engage them. You're under no, of course, obligation to explain why. That's none of their business. You do what your people direct you to do. You do what your own Kra directs you to do. And to hell with anybody else, no matter if they're from the continent, they have a specific title, all of that means nothing. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that's important is what your own Kra directs you to do, and what your own Nsamanfo direct you to do, and that direction comes from them. And the more consistent you are with regard to ancestral religious practice, ritual practice, and so forth, the more receptive you become. And we dealt with that whole notion of receptivity with regard to the Nsamanfo and ritual practice and so forth in the Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation broadcast, as well as a couple of others. All right. So, just want to make sure we didn't miss that last piece. Okay, so it looks like we got to that as well. All right, so the only other piece is, of course, when you go to the page, the Hoodoo Mind page on the website, whether you're on the website or the Facebook page, if you would like to support that work that we're doing, you can always go to our publications link. We've published 16 books, of course. They range between $8 and $11, and that is the way that we generate funds to fund these events. Of course, this is an event that we rented out the space. We're going to have the free books that will be printed in color, that we print in-house on our own printers in color, given out to all of the people who attend the event, all of our people. When we do presentations in different states, we do not charge a speaker's fee or an admissions fee. As a matter of fact, we did a presentation this weekend on Meminida in Jersey for the South Jersey Feku, the Ancestral Religion Study Group in Jersey. It was a great event, and Yerase to everyone for having us come out to share with the community. But when we go to different cities, go to different states, we do not charge a speaker's fee, nor do we charge an admissions fee for people to come in to our workshops. And we typically give away a free copy of one of our softcover books to everyone who attends the event. So they come to a free event, and they also walk away with at least one free publication, whether they have funds or not. So they have something tangible to go home and study after the event and incorporate into their lives. Of course, all of our broadcasts, 180 plus, are accessible on the Blog Talk Radio site. They're all free downloads, and then, of course, we've uploaded some to YouTube as well. So if you support the work, including our work to, we're establishing an institution, a physical space. We're working to open that up this year. Any support, purchasing of the books and so forth, or even donations, that allows us to continue the work that we are doing and expand the work. We have more projects coming up, events coming up, that we're going to make annual events, and this is the first one. one in the fall, one in the spring, one in the summer. So, Yerase, we thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you tuning into the shows, the broadcast. And, okay, one more question. Is it okay to do communications without all the artifacts recommended? So, yes. So, in fact, when you go to the Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation broadcast, and we go into detail about those questions about establishing an ancestral shrine, gathering those implements, and those are recommended implements to place on the shrine, but of course your Nsmafu will direct you as to what they want on the shrine and not. But you don't have to spend money to go out and, get elaborate things. We're talking about water in a bowl. We're talking about a stone, some incense and so forth. So you have fire, you have water, you have earth, you have air, and you can, reproduce a miniature, quote-unquote, Abodier creation universe. Right there was what the shrine is, with the same elements that were used to create the macro universe. And then you can enter into that miniature universe, that entity, that space that you have generated ritually. So check out the Nkomre Ancestral Shrine Communication and Liberation to deal with that question of ancestral religious practice, ritual practice. Because we actually go through the various articles that we have published on Ancestral Shrine Communication. We go through them, point by point in that broadcast. And, of course, if you have any questions, you can email us as well on Facebook. It's Kwesi Akan or Ojirafo or Afuraitkaitnut on Facebook, as well as connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as Ojirafo, and, of course, here on Blog Talk Radio, Ojirafo as well. So, okay, again, so Yerase, we thank you for tuning in, and we will be back on tomorrow for Ojira Purification. Yebeshia Bio, we will meet again. That's it.